Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brandy Lowry, and I am a staff attorney in the Individual Safety Unit with Lone Star Legal Aid in the Houston office. And welcome to another Facebook Live of the Law Talk Friday. Today, we will be talking about domestic violence and the holidays. But before we get started, let me read our disclaimer. This presentation is intended to serve as legal information and does not replace legal advice. Contact Lone Star Legal Aid at 1-800-733-8394 or go to www.lonestarlegal.org for more information on legal assistance. Again, thank you for all joining in and tuning in. We'll be talking about domestic violence and sexual assault during the holidays. As everybody's aware, we're in November, Thanksgiving, and Christmas is around the corner. So I want to introduce our guest. This is Waukesha Kelly from Bay Area Turning Point.
Hi, everyone. Hello, Facebook. I am Waukesha Kelly Dixon. I'm the program director at Bay Area Turning Point. Thank you, Lone Star Legal Aid, and thank you, Brandy, for welcoming us to this platform and to this table to talk about domestic violence in the holidays. I think this is the time for me to kind of talk a little bit about Bay Area Turning Point as well. So we are a nonprofit organization in the greater Bay Area. However, although that is our main location, we serve Harris, Brazoria, Galveston, and Chambers County. So survivors, those impacted directly and indirectly by domestic violence and sexual assault. We have a shelter program, non-residential program, housing program, counseling, advocacy, you name it, we can help you with. If you are a survivor, we try to connect you with the proper resources to overcome your trauma, recognize the trauma, and be able to healthily move past it. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to this great discussion.
Excellent. Thank you again for being a part of our Law Talk Friday. So let's go ahead and get started. As I stated before, this is November. So, November, it's getting colder outside. Thanksgiving is around the corner. Then after, then we have the holiday, then we have Christmas. So in regards to this discussion, what is considered the holiday season for purposes of this discussion?
So I think what we're going to term the holiday season is like right here. So November, December, and probably like a little bit of January, because I think it kind of flows, the holiday season kind of still flows a little bit into the first of the year. So for the context of this conversation, we're going to say November, December, and maybe a few days.
So basically Thanksgiving, Christmas, and that New Year's Eve turn up.
All right. Yes.
So for those that are new to our Facebook Lives and also new to Bay Area Turning Point and possibly Lone Star Legal Aid in regards to the Individual Safety Unit, let's talk a little bit and give a background on what is considered domestic violence and sexual assault. So let's give a definition for that.
Sure. So when people hear domestic violence, I think everybody goes to the physical pieces of domestic violence. They go to the bruises, the black eyes. They go to, the police came out and was banging on the door. Like they go to sometimes that extreme of what domestic violence is. However, I think conversations such as these help to educate the community in knowing what that is. And so a real kind of technical definition is, it is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behaviors. So financial abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, different types of abuse that is a behavior and part of a systematic pattern of power and control perpetrated by one intimate partner against another. So basically, I tell people all the time, it has nothing to do with drugs, alcohol. Of course, it heightens it, but at the root of it all, domestic violence is about someone attempting to gain power and control over the partner, or if it's family violence regarding someone you're in a familial relationship with, you're trying to gain power and control over that person. And so not attributing it to those other things that enhance it, but looking at the root of someone's trying to gain power and control. And so when we talk about sexual assault and what that is, again, we look at, this person may have been raped by a stranger or things of that nature. But the term sexual assault refers to sexual contact or behavior that occurs without the explicit consent. So the big thing of that is consent of the victim. And so if there is no consent for you to touch me, for you to make a remark, any of those things. If it is not a consent regarding that, then those are things that we're terming as sexual assault.
And I just want to piggyback. Thank you for the definition, because that was awesome. Because I want to piggyback in regards to like sexual in consent, because you said a mouthful. And those are, you know, for the those that are living with, that are married, so like intimate partner relationships. In regards to that, if you're in a relationship and your partner is trying to force to have sex on you and you don't want to, that is not consent, and that is still considered sexual assault. Also married couples, I have, you know, clients, and you've seen this as well, that they didn't realize that they were being sexually assaulted by their husband or their wife, because they were like, well, I didn't want to have sex, and my spouse forced it on me. And then I want people to understand that is also considered sexual assault, and that's not right. If you said no, even if you had a headache, you didn't feel like it, and you said no, that can be considered sexual assault within the marriage. That old adage back in the day, you know, way back in the day, when they used to say, you know, there's no such thing as marital rape. Well, we've gotten rid of that here in Texas. So marital rape is considered rape, and it is a sexual assault. So, and then in domestic violence, I love to always bring the examples up in regards to when, you know, like if you're at a family function, and I know a lot of times when, you know, you might see your uncle and your aunt fighting with each other, and everybody like, oh, they just always do that. You know, that's considered domestic violence. Anything, like you said, that power and control will, anybody who makes you open up a credit card in your name that you don't want to, that they force you to open up a credit card and use that credit card against your will, that can be, you know, coercion debt. So that's considered domestic violence. So as Waukesha explainedly said, that domestic violence is not necessarily the physical, the bruising that we see. It can definitely be verbal, mental, and emotional. So yeah. So we just wanted to have to piggyback and just want to let everybody know, you know, what domestic violence and sexual assault looks like. And we talk about it all the time, but we just always want to be reminded to our listeners.
Absolutely.
So it's the holiday time, and we're sitting around the table, or we're with family and friends. Usually this is supposed to be a joyous occasion. You know, we're eating turkey and dressing, we're trying to go see Santa Claus, you know, we might need to ring in the new year, but not everybody feels that way. So we always hear though, but does domestic violence and sexual assault tend to increase around the holidays?
I think it's a myth. That domestic violence is going to increase during the holidays. I think what increases during the holidays are those enhancements. So the drinking, the drug utilization, those things are what increases and can enhance people's violence more on a regular basis, or can make it come out a lot more. So whereas maybe I'm physical with you behind closed doors, sometimes the holidays, and like I said, the increase of the enhancements can then make it intensify in front of people. But I will say that domestic violence is something that happens all year long, 365, 24/7, which is why we have a 24/7 hotline, because we know that it happens around the clock every day. And so what we want to try to do in platforms such as this, and education such as this, is allowing the community to know that it doesn't happen at a particular season of the year, a particular day of the year, or a particular month of the year. Domestic violence is impacting people in this community every day. And so we can't just look for ways to get involved or ways to be educated during the holidays, but it's a year-round effort that we must be participants in making sure that we stay educated and knowledgeable about the signs, red flags, what it looks like, what it is, and what it isn't regarding domestic violence and sexual assault.
And I always wanted to know, like, because I agree with you, it's definitely a myth, because I did, you know, some research on it, and we are so taught to know that domestic violence and sexual violence occurs higher during the holidays. But I'm like, why is it? Because, you know, we've been watching movies to where you see families flipping over the tables during the time, or, you know, everybody wants to bring out their issues over the, you know, turkey and dressing. And so it's like, well, why peg it? Because I agree with you. Is, you know, this is 300, it doesn't discriminate. Domestic violence and sexual violence does not discriminate. It is 365. So then you did talk about enhancements. So because it's the holidays, and, you know, a lot of stressors can come about that can enhance the drinking and the drugging? What are some of the common stressors that you may have seen or heard from your clients that when they do try to get it out of during the holidays, they're getting out of the situation during the holidays?
One of the things that we've identified that happens during the holiday season with our survivors and families that we help is the financial piece. That is a huge stressor during the holidays. Like you said, sexual assault and domestic violence, it doesn't discriminate, right? And so because it doesn't discriminate, people who are victims are just everyday people that you may sit in church with, go to work with. So just as everybody wants to provide certain gifts, certain meals, all of those things to their families during the holidays, so do our survivors and so do the clients that we serve. And so when you've left possibly your sole provider, when you've left the person who pays the rent, pays the bills, gives you the money to go Christmas shopping or to buy the Thanksgiving dinner or to buy the firecrackers, when you've left that environment and now you have to figure it out all by yourself, it's like, what do I do? Right. And so we get those clients who are like, I'm just going to go back because at the end of the day, I want my kids to have a good Christmas, right? I want my kids to feel family. And so the stressors of the financial piece, I don't have the money, all of that, that is a huge stressor. And I will also say the family piece is a stressor. We say seek safety. We say come into shelter, but what we're telling people is sometimes to leave everything that behind. Leave everything that makes you feel like you belong behind. You can't tell your mom where you're at. You can't tell your friends. You can't tell your close person. Your person, whatever. You can't do that. And so the holidays, you see the commercials and you see the pictures of people being with their family. And so our survivors sometimes don't have that. Their family becomes their turning point. So that's another stressor of that familiar relationships, they can't tangibly touch those and sometimes even intangibly touch those.
So in regards to like the financial, so can financial strains on the family cause the enhancement of domestic violence? Well, I'm not gonna say enhancement. Can it cause, a person to suffer from domestic violence, in like because we're in COVID. So right now we're in COVID. Okay. And we're in, I don't know if it's post-COVID, where we at in COVID, but we're still in COVID. People have lost their jobs. People are not going back to work. Households and income is struggling. So would that be a situation to where sexual assault and domestic violence can occur in the household during these times?
Absolutely. Financial strain, whether somebody has left the abusive situation or still currently in it. The money issue is a stressor. Even if you're independent, money issue is a stressor. And so if you're in a home and it's already tense, right? It's already the stress. And now I don't have money to take care of my family. So it's again, another control thing. I can't control my lights not being cut off, right? If I ain't got no money, I can't control not being able to go grocery shop. Like I can't control those things. And so sometimes when an abuser can't control the fact that I can't get a job, or an abuser can't control that I don't have money coming in, the thing that they then begin to try to gain power and control over is their partner, is the people in their household, is what they believe. Now I can get y'all to shut up, or I can get y'all to do what I want you to do because I can't control that piece over there. Right. So that stressor of financial, both with an abuser, but as well as someone who is escaping the abuse, the financial stress and the stress of money, it hits people like a ton of bricks, and it's not light. It's not light.
So do you think, and this is, of course, just based on your opinion, do you think that we're better on the better end of the financial strain versus last year? Because last year we were definitely in COVID, like in the heart of COVID. Not saying COVID is still here, but we were just coming back from coming up with a shutdown to where all of this year we haven't necessarily been shut down. We've been, like people say, we're outside now. So do you think that it may be a little bit better this year on the financial strain, or you think it's probably about as equal or worse, or?
Let me see. I think we see more jobs, right? We see the, hey, we're hiring, come apply. So I think there are jobs that are out there. I will say, however, what I'm seeing is while I can help a client find a job, the money that they may be making at their job is not going to pay for the $3.29 gallon of gas they need to get to work. And so they're getting the jobs to try to help with the financial strain. But when groceries, the dollar amount for groceries has gone up, for gas has gone up, pet food has gone up. So all the things of which I thought I was getting ahead, now I got the other pieces that are hitting just as hard. And so we have agencies that reach out to us that try to hire our clients. We do budgeting with our clients. We do, hey, jump in the van, let's go around and look for jobs with our clients. And so we have case managers and victim advocates that work with our clients one-on-one to address those financial strains. We work with Thrive through United Way, where clients can speak with employment counselors, financial counselors, people who have that dedicated concentration of experience to be able to help them move through that. And I know I see, so most victims are told they aren't allowed to work. Yes, that is absolute truth. That's again, the power and the control.
Right.
Because if you get money, then you just might leave me, or you just might figure out a way on how to save. And again, you chunking me to deuce. So it's the power and the control. So they are told you can't work, you can't do anything self-sufficient. And we meet people again from all walks of life. Some people have doctorate degrees. Some people may have a high school diploma, whatever that is. And because the power and the control is so heavy in their toxic relationships, the skills and the knowledge and education that they have just aren't being able to utilize because again, the power and the control.
And that is so important. And, the power control wheel is a study that was done. So anybody want to be able to Google or research it, it's a wheel and it tells you about the different power control and how it works. We don't have a copy of it here, but definitely be able to Google the power and control wheel. So we basically talk about, the stressors, like money issue can be an issue, like during the holidays when folks can buy gifts for their children, jobs are scarce, jobs are available, but the income is not matching where we are now. So it's a lot. And we're still in COVID. Everything has increased. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I also want to reiterate. So why do victims choose to stay during the holidays? So they're going through this stressor. They're dealing with their abuser who is stressed out and can't be able to afford the things that they want for the family. So they're taking it out, they're taking it out on their family. Absolutely, we got the power and control wheel that's already been in place because they're finding ways to keep the person there. So why aren't they calling? Yes, like why aren't they calling the police to try to, or any resources to get out?
So I think one of the big things that's, I will say, a region in Texas, Harris County big, is that shelters are full. And so why I'm staying is probably because I have nowhere safe to go. I've called the hotline, but the shelter is full. Most of the time during the holidays, people are kind of steady and stable in shelters and facilities. And so they really are moving around just because of that security that they're, needing for their family, or stability, let me say that, for their families. So they aren't really kind of moving out of shelters. So when people are calling, shelters are probably full. The other thing of why people choose to stay sometimes during the holidays is that familiar touch of the tangible family, making things joyful, and exciting for my children. Children are a really big part on why people stay. Sometimes in relationships, they are the reason why people choose to leave, but they are also, again, a reason why people stay. And it's so that my kids can have a nice holiday, so that my kids can feel loved on, so that my kids can see, mommy or daddy or their grandparents for the holidays. And so oftentimes people will look beyond their own safety and look beyond themselves to be able to fulfill that need of somebody else. And so that's why one of the things our agency did during the holidays was during COVID, was we started up a hotel program. And so it's our overflow program. So when shelter is full, we still have somewhere to be able to house clients. We have a relationship with 2 different hotels that we are able to help someone flee for safety to. So I always want people to know, don't err on the side of they don't have space. Still call, because you don't know what an agency has worked out in understanding what the demand and what the need is. And so while we're talking about it, I'll go ahead and put our hotline number out there for those who may be in need right now, who you may come in contact with during the holidays, or if you recognize yourself in an abusive relationship during the holidays. Our hotline number is 24/7. It's 281-286-2525. We have someone answering it all the time. And we have both of those arenas of shelter and hotel that we do offer to clients who are seeking safety.
Absolutely. I like that. I mean, that's good that y'all have an overflow hotel, especially in this climate that we're in. Like yesterday, we did a episode with the Safe Safe talking about homelessness. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, those that are leaving their abusers can be homeless because, there are no shelters available due to COVID, So that's awesome that y'all have a hotel overflow. That's real good. Now, do they have to pay for the hotel or? Mm-mm. Oh, it's free. Okay.
It's free. We provide the free hotel stay, and we provide the meals for them to be able to stay there as well. So they'll get 3 meals. They get snack pack, all of that to last them for the duration while they're there.
Good. Is there a particular time or a long period of time they can stay? Like, do they have a time period to leave or?
So we can, the initial stay is 7 days. So you automatically get 7 days in the hotel program. However, we understand that survivors may feel like because of the financial piece, I can't sustain, so they'll go back to the abuser. We do allow for extensions in the hotel program, and it's case by case basis. Those clients are provided a case manager who helps them call along with themselves other shelters that may have space, other family members, or helping them get into our housing program at a more faster pace. And so, like I said, they don't have to pay anything. It's the initial 7 days that they can stay. You can come and go as you choose. It's just your safe place to be able to say, I got to get out of here. And this is over the top too much, and their safety, client safety is our number one concern. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So as we talk about safety, and another part of safety is, we would like to, we automatically assume that you should call the police if you're in this situation. Why do clients tend to not, or survivors tend not to call the police, especially during the holidays, if they're in an abusive situation?
I think people don't call the police for multiple reasons. I think there's the non-trust that may be there. Mm-hmm. Or there's some that do trust the police. You have those that I've called the police out before, and they may have not sided with me or sided with, my partner. Or you gotten the people who I've called the police multiple times, and it may be this time they're going to think that they're not going to believe them. However, I do encourage people to call law enforcement. We try to make it our business, along with other centers, of having relationships with police departments, of educating and making them aware of what domestic violence and sexual assault looks like, so that when they're responding to those calls, that they're properly responding. We are aware that not everybody knows how to respond to a domestic violence situation, mm-hmm. or to a victim. And so it's our due diligence and our responsibility to train those who are in the line of work, who are the first responders, to make sure that they know. But with that, we know that people aren't going to call the police. And so if they don't, we are able to help them. You don't have to have called the police to receive our services. That is not anything that you have to do. You can call our hotline, which I mentioned, 281-286-2525, or you can just come into our office at 210 South Walnut, Webster, Texas, 77598 for assistance. It's not a requirement that you have to get involved with law enforcement. Everybody's not ready for that step. Some mm-hmm. people just want to know what their options are. And that's what we're here to provide and do for them. So if you find yourself in an unsafe environment, you cannot escape, then yes, call 911. allow them to assist you. I always tell people, give someone the benefit of the doubt sometimes to see, versus you sitting in a violent situation where who's to say the next time you may not be able to call 911. I tell people all the time, don't take domestic violence as a slight yell or push or shove. Don't take it that way, because statistics have shown that violence is increasing. Homicides are increasing for domestic violence, so especially in Houston. So we cannot sit on the sidelines or take it lightly when partners are abusive and you know that you are in an abusive situation.
Especially during the holidays, I just want to piggyback, definitely during the holidays call, because do not feel like you need to stay at home because of family, or you're scared about what your family might say or might think, because, that's when the grandparents come into town, the siblings come into town or whatever. And even if you haven't told them, and we're not saying you have to tell them your situation, but don't feel like you have to stay in an abusive situation just to put on airs in front of your family. Mm-hmm. If you are in a life or death situation, then call 911, call the hotlines, they're available. Like, do not stay just because it's the holidays. We want you safe. And
I think you bring up a good point, Brandy, though, about people wanting the image. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes we get society, period, can make us feel like we have to keep up an image when we're hurting, and we're living in homes that hurt us. But you bring up a very good point. Your image is not distorted when you come and seek help. Your image is not tainted when you say, my partner is being abusive to me. That does not taint your image of who you are as a person. It just, for me, it says, it's wrong. You deserve better, and you deserve something different. So, I thank you, Brenda, for bringing that up. That's a really good
point. We all don't live in those wonderful Hallmark Christmas movies.
Right.
TV, we do not. I love them. I'm the one that started watching them after Thanksgiving, though. But we do not live in the wonderful Hallmark movie channel Christmas movie. Right. Like, that is only a movie. So absolutely, definitely don't stay, because you want your life to look like the Hallmark movie channel.
Yes.
But those that have decided to leave and say they left prior to now, that are currently living in the shelters or the hotels or, whatever. At times, they're kind of feeling lonely or whatever. Why do some of them go back? Like, they survived, they've left the abusers, and then now it's the holiday season, but some of them do go back, so why do they go back?
I think it's change. Statistics say it takes 7 times. Somebody's going to go back and forth 7 times before they leave for good. So I think it's just change. During the holidays, everybody's so nice. They're so loving. Yeah, the greatest song. They're so kind. Mm-hmm. And so an abusive partner is the same way. They're going to turn it on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go and get us a turkey. I'm going to make it this. I'm going to make it that. And so for a survivor, sometimes it's the reminder of the honeymoon stage, of who you were when I first met you, there you go. They didn't change. Finally, they learned. And so it's the hope that things are going to be different. It's the hope of, I got my family back. It's the hope of, okay, I can get back to something that makes me feel good. So a lot of times that's a big reason why they go back, because it's the image, or it's the portrayal that things are finally what they sense or believe it should be. And soon after, sometimes the holidays, or even during that holiday time, an abuser, then it's the cycle of violence. The honeymoon stage is over. Then it's the tension building stage. And so that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and then it's the battering phase of, then we're right back. And so the cycle of it, the cycle of violence, it's the same. It doesn't change. The holiday season, again, because the Hallmark movies, and it's just so much going on and so much joy being spread that, people draw to that. And when an abuser turns it on, it just draws a victim and draws a survivor back to that point of, this is the man or woman who I first fell in love with. And like anybody else, we all want to be loved. We all want to be wanted and thought about and treated nicely. So those are some that have come up in me talking with clients and, what I've noticed.
We want the Hallmark movie channel during the holidays.
We do. Yeah. We want it in our house.
We want the snow and, the hot chocolate, sleigh ride. We want all that. So But like you said, you brought up a good point. It takes 7 times for a victim to leave. So, well, you actually brought this up when I was going to say mention resources. So tell them, well, not those resources. So what are some tips that we can tell survivors to leave? And what are some tips that we can provide for our listeners that are in this situation? Because, we talked about why they leave and go back. We talked about, you can call the police even if it's the holidays. But what are some other things that help them to try to leave their situation? Especially during the holidays when we realize we're no longer in our Hallmark movie channel, in a Christmas movie anymore.
So we talked about definitely calling the hotline. That's the big one. We talked about calling 911. That's another big one. I think the other thing is for survivors is code words. I always tell people code word. If you're in a violent situation, you're not ready to leave, which is okay. We all want everybody to go to safety, but we know everybody isn't ready for that point. So I tell people establish code words with your family. So if it's during the holidays and let's say they aren't coming over, or if they are coming over, hey, this is the code word. When I say this word, you already know what to do. Either it's clear everybody out the house or it's call 911, but you establish what you feel your next step is that you're comfortable with for the person who you trust. Another thing that I tell survivors is, if you got a little money that somebody gave you for the holidays, for Christmas, store that up, save it. You never know when it's going to be a rainy day or when you do have to flee with you and your children. And so that money that you may have gotten, you pocket that and you save that, because again, you never know when you got to crawl out of there in the middle of the night and you got to pay for a room real quick. You never know. So always have those things. Other things that I tell survivors is be watchful, again, of the honeymoon stage. You know who your partner is. You know what their buttons are. Sometimes and you can sense when it's getting to that tension phase. And so I tell people, while the honeymoon stage is real, always be mindful and always be watchful, because you just never know. And so being intentional, if you are returning, knowing that you still have resources in the community, such as Bay Area Turning Point, who is here to help you no matter how many times you come back. Don't be afraid to call that hotline. Don't be afraid to call 911. It was your choice to go back. It absolutely is. But if you don't want to stay there, no one's going to look at you any different. Remember, it doesn't taint your image of who you are or what you deserve. And so if you do return and you notice yourself back in a violent situation, please contact us, 281-286-2525. We are here 24/7 to be able to help you.
So what are some things that can be done to reduce stress during the holidays? Because, if we're in a financial bind, then people tend to do alcohol, drink alcohol or do drugs. So instead of running to the drugs and running to the alcohol, what, in your opinion, are some things that can be done?
I'm an advocate for counseling. And so I encourage everybody to take advantage of it. I think for survivors during the holidays, if you have a counselor or if you don't have one, to check in, because the holidays brings amongst the stress, not just the financial stress, but the loneliness, the hopefulness, the wishfulness, all of that, it brings it on. And so if you have a counselor or if you're seeking one, do your due diligence in doing that and just do a check-in to make sure you can throw up. I say it all the time, counselors, this time you just throw up. I'm just going to let it all out, how I'm feeling, and you help me move past it and think through it. And so use that time to talk to somebody and talk through how you're feeling so that you don't have to cope with the other things. Because while we know that survivors come from abusive situations, oftentimes they use other things to cope with the trauma. They may use the drugs, they may use the alcohol, but it's a form of trying to cope with their trauma, right? So not that they're, you an alcoholic or a drug abuser. What's the reason for that? And when we peel back that onion and look at that, we can see the multitude of trauma sometimes that people have endured and went through abusive relationships, sexual assaults, all of those things. And so making sure that you check in with a mental health professional so that you can have someone to talk to about your feelings, about your concerns, and even about your trauma, because those things can rise up during the holidays.
I would also add too, exercising would be a good one for on both parties, for the abuser and for the survivor, because the abuser, instead of going to the alcohol and the drugs, you might need to run around the block, let out some steam.
Right.
So, and also a counselor as well too for them, because a lot of this, could be helps if if there is a counselor in their lives as well. So I absolutely agree. So we are coming towards the end, and I would just like to add for you again, please let everybody know what resources are available if somebody is in a situation and they can't get out. Because I know you said it throughout the entire show, but just let everybody know again, if somebody is in this situation, they're watching this right now, they have a friend, they are in it, or they know somebody, what resources are available for them?
So resources that are available to them, I want to give a little bit of statistic information, and then I want to attach that to why we have to know what the resources are. In 2020, 228 Texans were killed by intimate partners. There was a 23% increase in homicide from 2019 to 2020. And so when we talk about resources, Brandy and myself, we aren't just throwing it out there to say, hey, here's a resource just for you to know. We're naming the resources because we know that the resources are vital to ending violence. We know that the resources are vital so that the increase won't be in 2021, or the 200 number won't increase in 2021. And so in many and multiple counties, there are service centers such as Bay Area Turning Point. There are domestic violence and sexual assault agencies in many counties. If you go to Texas Association Against Sexual Assault website, as well as Texas Council on Family Violence website, you can find agencies such as Bay Area Turning Point within your county that can help you. But like I said, Bay Area Turning Point assists those in Harris County, Brazoria, Chambers, and Galveston. We are a resource that is available 24/7. Our hotline is 24/7. And so if you find yourself in a violent situation where you are seeking and needing to get out, or you just want to know what your options are. If your abuser is threatening to take you to court to take your kids, if you want to know what your options are regarding that, please call us. We can talk you through and talk about what those are. Our phone number again, 281-286-2525. Our website is www.bayareaturningpoint.org. We have a get help button that you can find. You can chat with us. If you're not ready to call, not ready to come in, you can send us an email and our hotline specialists respond to that as well. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have ways for you to connect. And that is what we're wanting people to do. If you know someone who is in a violent situation, put it in I tell people all the time, put it in your back pocket and put it in your toolbox, because you never know when you got to pull it out. And you don't want to be the person that knows something and you like, I don't know how to help you. And you don't have to know the answer. But if you at least have the resource to be able to provide, know that it makes a difference.
Also, does your website have a safety exit, like an escape page, to where, it can clear the history when they're on there?
Absolutely, yes. So if you are looking at our website, we do have an escape button. You press that escape button, it's going to clear your history and it's going to take them to a page and that's like, oh, that's what you're looking at. It's not going to be what you looking at that for. It's not going to bring up anything crazy or make someone dig. So know that we're thinking of all the safety pieces. The other thing I want to add is we have virtual appointments. So if transportation is an issue for you, or your abuser won't let you drive, all of those things, we can assist you via the phone. And so you can receive all of the services that we provide on our non-residential side, both in person and virtually.
Thank you for this information. Again, don't let anything stop you from leaving your situation. If if he or she is threatening to take children from you, do not let that be a reason to stop you. It is, you can contact for legal advice. You can contact Lone Star Legal Aid at 713-652-0077, or you can go to our website at www.lonestarlegal.org. And we also have I think we have an escape page as well, like an exit to where if you're searching for our services and then you need to get away briefly, it'll clear your history as well. But don't let just because it's the holidays, I understand we all want to be with the frills and love and, Santa Claus and turkey and dressing and New Year's. But if you are in a stressful, in a dangerous situation, regardless if it's mental, physical, verbal, get out. There's help. And if you are a friend that knows somebody's in this situation, be there for them. And when they're ready, listen to them. Do not judge them. And just be their friend. So with all that, we're coming to a close. We hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, a happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see y'all next time. Thank you, Waukesha, for being a part. This was a great time.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandy, and thank you, Lone Star Legal Aid. We appreciate the platform.